Hey, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Today I want to talk about one of the key things that is keeping you stuck in this merry-go-round of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Right? A lot of times what happens in our life is we experience uncomfortable things, and then we go into action to make that discomfort go away, but we don't actually deal with what's going on that actually caused the discomfort. And that's the work that I do with men. We walk and we talk with each other, we get real, we go deep, we're honest with each other, we're vulnerable, we share things with each other that we don't get to share with other people. And sometimes what we do is we learn to share things with ourselves, to admit things, to be okay with things, so that we can process them, so that we can move past them. And I teach men to do that a variety of different ways, but one of the most powerful ways that I have found that's been most useful for me has been through journaling. And I'm not talking about keeping a diary, dear diary, today I kissed a boy. I'm talking about really being honest with yourself and writing down some of the things that you're not okay with, right? Some of the things that you don't say to anyone else, but are going on in your head. And those can be difficult things to say. Sometimes it's hard to even allow ourselves permission to admit that we feel that way or think that way or whatever it is, because we're so shamed by it, right? We're like, oh, if someone else knew that I was thinking that, what would they think of me, right? Just like right now I'm making this video for you, and my dog has pooped in the park, and so I'm gonna reach down and pick it up, because these days if you don't pick up your dog's poop, people get upset, right? And they're willing to shame you for it, and we even get to a point where we shame ourselves about it, right? Because we're like, oh, if anybody saw my dog poop and I didn't pick it up, and they would shame me. So we were willing to shame ourselves in order to avoid being shamed by others. And so here I am making a video for you, but also picking up poop, just because of that same thing, right? So so we have to be able to admit that to ourselves, admit that we've got some things going on that are actually bothering us that much, bothering so much that we won't even admit them to ourselves, right? That we won't even allow ourselves to go there. We won't acknowledge the thing that's bothering us because there's pain associated with it, and we don't want to experience that pain, and so we push that thing down. But yet, when we don't process it, right, when we don't move past it, when we don't deal with it, we deal with it all the time. We wind up experiencing the negative effects, the painful effects, the byproduct of those thoughts. And so it's not like we escape from them, right? We just push them away. We just keep pushing them away, and they just keep popping back up to the surface indirectly in our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors and our experiences with other people. And so this morning I was journaling, and I really got to a point where I had some things that I wanted to say, and I could feel that resistance, right? I could feel that, I don't know if I want to say those things. I don't know if I want to write those things down, right? Because if I write them down, they're not just thoughts in my head, but now they're more tangible, right? I have to see them on the page. I have to confront them. I have to admit them. I have to, at some point, decide whether or not I want to deal with them or not. And so I wrote down some things that I'm not okay with, right? And I made that my list. At first, I wrote down maybe like complaints, or I used a word that that just didn't feel like was honest enough, right? It felt like that word shifted the responsibility to somebody else. Like I had something that somebody else was doing that I didn't like. And we're not talking about that, right? I'm not talking about coming up with a list of grievances that we think somebody else needs to change or be different or do in order for us to be okay. What I'm talking about is being able to sit down and write down what's bothering us so that we can actually own it and point to it and say, where does that come from? Why is that? What about that bothers me? Am I okay with that? Do I want that to be different? Do I want to hold on to that? Do I want to let that go? Do I want, do I want to, what do I want, right? And it's all wrapped up in ownership. It's all wrapped up in making choices, making our own choices, making decisions for ourselves so that we can live in alignment with our values, in alignment with what's important to us and who we are and who we want to be. And so I wrote down this list of things that that bother me, things that bother me. And I just tried to be very honest, right? I just tried to brain dump and just be very honest and write those things in a way that really got to the heart of it, right? That really allowed me to own it and not to push it off on somebody else, like I said before. And when I got down to it, I was only about 5 things that bothered me. And I won't get into those in particular on this video. I'll make some other videos about those things. But the point of this video is just to say I wrote down 5 things. And when I got down to it, I was like, okay, so is there anything else that's bothering me? And so the list was fairly short, is my point. And of all the lives, all the life living, everything that can go on in a life, there was just these 5 things. Now we can debate the magnitude of each of those things to say, okay, is this how big is this thing, right? It's just a list of 5 things, but is one of those things like 90% of life or something? You could argue that, but the list was very simple. And there was really a reoccurring theme in the list. And I was able to recognize that, this thing bothers me, but it's really not kind of about this thing. It's actually, they're all kind of pointing to the same type of thing. And then as I allowed myself to say these uncomfortable things, to write these uncomfortable things, to think these uncomfortable things, and acknowledge them and accept them and be like, yep, okay, well, I thought those things. Then what happened was I was able to start getting clear about what I thought about those things. I was able to get clear about whether or not, what about those things bothered me and whether or not what I wanted to do about those things, right? Do I need to think something different? Do I need to have different thoughts? Do I need a different perspective? What part of this can I own? What part of this could be different? And what part of this do I just need to sit with and be okay that it is what it is? And that's what all starts to open up when we at least accept ourselves, right? We're accepting, because that's what I'm really talking about there is accepting myself at some level, right? Those thoughts aren't necessarily me. They don't define me. I don't have to be defined by those thoughts, but they're in there, right? They're stored somewhere in my brain. They're part of my operating instructions, my quiet, silent operating instructions. And so I'm getting a little better understanding of what's stored in my brain, right? I'm getting a little understanding of what quiet operating instructions have been driving me, right? What uncomfortable feelings have I been avoiding? And that helps me to have ownership of myself. It helps me to have clarity. It helps me to be able to at least process what's going on there. And this is really the 5 stages of grief. When you look at the 5 stages of grief, this is applied to anything that we're trying to process through, where we first have a stage of denial, right? We don't want to even acknowledge that it exists. Then we have anger. Then we have bargaining. Then we have sadness. And then finally we get, after we waffle back and forth through all those feelings back and forth, we wind up eventually at acceptance, right? We really get to a point where we're like, okay, well, I don't like it. I didn't ask for it. I don't condone it. I don't want it. But I acknowledge it. And I acknowledge that it is, and I'm going to decide what I want to do about it, right? What I want to think, what I want to feel, what I want to do, and we're able to process it, right? We're able to move past it, but we're only able to do that once we've acknowledged it, right? Like once we're able to point to it. So you can say acceptance is almost just an acknowledgement, right? An acknowledgement that the thing is. And when we do that, then we can point to it, then we can define it, then we can understand it, and we can process it, and we can move past it. But if we're telling ourselves that it's not okay to think these things, it's not okay to feel these things, it's not okay to say these things, right? We can't even journal it, we can't even write it down, we can't express it, and we won't even say it to ourselves, then we're just going to be stuck living out a reactionary life to whatever that is. So this is what I want to do. I want to invite you into a conversation like that. I want to invite you into more of a discussion about this. Let's unravel that hairball. Let's unpack what's going on inside of you. Let's get that out onto the page and talk about it and drag it out into the light and explore it and be able to define it and pick it apart and be able to decide what it is that you want to do moving forward and free yourself from these thoughts, from these quiet operating instructions, from this pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that have kept you stuck in your relationship, in your life, and just kind of trapped, feeling unwell in your own skin. That's what I have for you today. Click the link in the description below. You can find that down there. Go and sign up for a free consultation. Let's have a call with each other. We'll spend time talking about these things and go deep, and then we'll get you on the road to healing. All right. I love you, brother. Talk to you soon.